Something in the water taught me how to crawl. Something in the water taught me how to fall.
Welcome to another episode of Something in the Water. I'm Sean Clark with my co-host here, Uncle Dave Griffin.
And tonight, our guests are the lovely Katherine Ball and the lovely Garrett Martin.
The not so no.
No,
Speak for yourself, sir.
he's just as lovely as I am. But,
He is.
At least.
I was just doing a regular Dave joke.
Well, good to have y'all.
Thank you guys for having us. We're so
Golly,
glad to
yeah.
be here.
You're a girl of the world. I mean,
Thank
I met you in Athens. You're from Valdosta. Ain't no telling where you've been in between. Yeah.
California and Colorado, back to Atlanta, back to Athens, back to Valdosta.
And a musician.
And a musician.
Yeah.
The whole time.
Yeah. So you got it early, huh?
I got it really early. I don't really think I have any memory of not having any memory of it or love of it. We've got a picture of me in Jacksonville at 2 years old playing a C-sharp octave on a keyboard. So I guess at 2, I knew something was going on.
Wow.
And I've just always followed that sound, that parlor piano, kind of like that, and the pedals steel have been the sounds that will take me away.
I like that pedal steel.
Yeah, so I've just followed that essentially.
I
where
heard
my ear
somebody
led me.
call it the sad guitar.
Sad machine.
Sad machine, that's it. The sad machine.
Garrett, you're from Valdosta as well,
I am.
and you play with some bands.
Played with quite a few bands.
Yeah,
You're a guitar
Most of
player.
them.
yeah, most of them. Yeah,
Lead.
Lead,
guitar.
rhythm,
Yeah.
vocals,
Slide.
bass,
Yeah.
slide.
Yeah.
How old are you?
I'm 30. I just turned 30.
Okay, you're the same age as my boy.
Mm-hmm.
Connor Griffin, the drummer for the Pine Box Dwellers.
Which is how I know these gentlemen, actually.
Exactly.
I played with Connor in Athens with some guys, Scotty Nicholson and Derek Warren, and
Good
Nowhere
friends.
Bar and Georgia Theater crew, and cut my
we've been up
teeth
in
with
there.
them.
Great.
Great space. Had a 3 a.m. dinner with your family and beautiful wife after that Nowhere Bar
That's
show.
right.
And
That was our first meeting.
that was our first
I
meeting.
think we were up there that weekend putting out flyers for the Grand Parsons Guitar Pool.
That's exactly what you guys were doing.
And we met up right there on a telephone light pole.
At the corner of college. Yeah, right there by the grill. And that was the only place open, which is why we ate there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, what a town.
what a town.
So y'all just met at like, hey, how you doing? Didn't know each other, or
No, and I had not known about you
No.
prior to that.
Yeah.
So you kind of laid it all out that night, and
you knew who he was when you
So
saw him?
the reason I knew who he was because of Connor. And the crazy thing, when we were talking that night at the grill, him being from Waycross, he mentioned my elementary school music teacher, Bill Smith,
Yeah.
from Valdosta at Salis Mahone, who taught me so much of my foundation. I found out, once you get older, you realize how much you pulled from that. But come to find out, they were best buds. Well, that sent it into a whole nother stratosphere from there. Because how cool, what a small world. These people I was already playing with circles right back around to the Genesis.
I've done some duo gigs with Bill way back in the day. Whitfields. I was like, Bill, come out and play with me, and he wouldn't bring his guitar. He'd bring all his little penny whistles and
All his little accoutrements.
yeah. And I was like, it was still cool. I was like,
Well, shout out to Bill. Hey, Bill.
We love you.
Got to get you on here. Yeah, Bill will anything you put in Bill's hands,
play it.
he'll end up mastering it.
That's what we've been told and are still being told to this day. And our new bass player that was a friend of Garrett's in Valdosta that he brought on to play some live shows with us, his best friend is Bill's son, Austin.
Oh, wow.
So
Joe
it's
Martin. Shout out to Joe.
shout out to Joe Martin and Rylan Shipman. Rylan drums with us with our live shows, and Joe plays bass and Garrett's on guitar.
Now, is Joe brother or
You can say that.
relation? He's not related, though, but y'all's last names are the same.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay.
Makes it easier, less to remember.
That's right. It's the Joe and Garrett combo.
They are.
When you
they're a great
introduce them, you
combo.
say, "This is one of the Martin boys."
We think it's funny how my last name is Ball and their last name is Martin. With
Oh yeah, Ernie Ball strings and C.F. Martin. That's pretty cool.
There's a guy named Taylor Martin that plays a Gibson over in the Golden House.
You talking about mixed up? That boy is mixed up. Well,
bless his heart.
yeah, he's good. He ain't so mixed up that he ain't good though.
He's very good.
That's the good kind of mixed up
yeah.
that you want to be.
He played at the Swamp Town Get Down, did a little set. Well, how about this? Let's talk about now. You talked about playing a C sharp on the piano when you was 2. Was there music in your family? I mean, they had a piano for something.
Well, here's the irony. We had the piano at our houses, one at our house and one at my mother's parents' house, but I wasn't allowed to play it. And that keyboard that I was playing on in Jacksonville was at my other grandmother's house. And my cousin, Paul Quattlebaum, who's a jazz musician in Charleston, he's about 10 years older than me, was down for the weekend, was a huge fan of the Brothers. So he was 12 or 13 at that point. So that was his keyboard I was playing.
Mm-hmm.
So I got the taste of it and then came home, but wasn't allowed to touch the instrument, which was confusing. But I'd go to school during the day. I'd learn from Bill.
Yeah.
We'd learn staff notation, treble clef, bass clef, quarter notes, eighth notes, six, our standard thing. And then I'd go on Tuesday to Park Avenue United Methodist Church to a program for kids called Terrific Tuesdays.
Yeah.
Well, in the mess hall of the church was a piano. So I would wait, I relished on Tuesday, could not wait to get to the mess hall at Park Avenue because I would get an idea on Friday, go to my grandparents over the weekend, barely try to work, like without them hearing it, work on it. And would go to school on Monday, talk to Bill about it. And then on Tuesday, I would go to the church piano and teach myself.
Cool.
So that's how it started. And up until I was 28, I was self-taught. And when I was in Athens, I worked with Mr. Jim Hawkins at Studio 1093. He built Capricorn Studio in Macon and had this studio in Athens. And when he met me, he found out I played piano and found out I was from Valdosta and was like, well, you need to meet Ike Stubblefield in Athens. And I was like, sure, all right. So he gave me his number, and I proceeded to spend that summer training under Ike and learning under Ike and have some of the best memories. But that was my first and only piano teacher. But everything up to that point was self-taught, and I would take everything I'd learned from Bill and school and church. YouTube came out when I was 18, so my freshman year of college, and that really changed everything for me. And then I would learn on YouTube too, but it's just been progressive.
Wow, yeah, you've been connected with some big folks there, like Stubblefield. We were playing a one of them things at the Hummingbird back in December, the
Georgia Roots Rock.
Georgia Roots Rock Showcase that Daniel Neesmith put on. And my gig was usually leading off at the beginning of the night. So my wife stumbled around to Grant's Lounge with a friend of ours, and I didn't know where she was. Of course, that's usual, you know. And when she came back, she said, "I just saw Ike Stubblefield. He's amazing." And I got his number. We need to get him at a festival. And we didn't work fast enough because he might have been one of the casualties of COVID. Hell, I don't know.
He unfortunately was. He passed
he?
away in July of 2021,
No.
and it was sad. He had cancer, unfortunately. So he was. I will forever do him justice. I think about him every time I sit down to play, and he was just such an incredible spirit and a wonderful person and so kind. And, you know, for all of us at that same time to be in Athens, I was there for about 7.5 years, went to graduate school there, started my career fully there. But it's just neat looking back how we were all planets, you know, just kind of orbiting around each other and all found our way to the same space. So I always thought
Well,
that
that's
was so cool.
the cosmicity, the cosmic nature of music. It does bring people together,
It's a frequency.
even a little more directly. You know, it brings people together all around the world by listening to the same. Let it be. You can hear it all the way. These people over in China are hearing it at the same time we are. And that's a together factor, but it also works down to minute details and brings you together with him. Mm-hmm. The next thing you know, there's a chain reaction. Boom, something else happens, you know. I like all that stuff.
The next thing you know, you're reading everybody's mind.
I hope it don't get to that.
What note we're about to play next?
Yeah.
She's undressing me with her eyes.
That's why they call it the universal language.
Yeah. If only the heads of state would start being more like heads instead of warlords.
Garrett, when did you start playing?
I think I was 15.
I
when
was
started
15
playing.
too. Was
Yeah.
it guitar or?
Started with guitar. Yeah, I wish I started when I was like 5.
Me too. I wanted
Do
to
like
do
one of
piano
those-
when I was 5, but
one of
nobody
those-
would never. There was nobody to give lessons. Or,
Yeah. And I don't know if I ever would have started. My aunt got me guitar lessons for my birthday.
Cool.
And from that day on, I was
Strung out.
hooked.
were you a big music fan before that?
Yeah.
Or? So you were
Yeah,
You
it
were
just
dialed
never
in.
occurred to me that I should
do it. Yeah.
try to learn.
So let's say you're
So
30 now.
thank God for her.
He's doing math.
Yeah. You were 15.
So it was a
15
Tuesday.
15 in 2008. No, 15 in 2008. You'd have been 15.
That's how Athens was. I think growing up in Valdosta, we played music to survive in South Georgia. And I come from big church families, you know, on both sides of my family. But I also had the wonderful opportunity. I call her my second mother. Her name is Miss Johnny Sermons, and my dad passed away when I was 9. And Miss Johnny had been with us, kind of, you know, as my babysitter essentially, but really came on as my other mom when my dad passed away. But I started going to church with her from the time I was 2 years old. So half the weekends I would be at Christ Episcopal or Park Avenue United Methodist, and then the other weekends I would be at West Adair Church of Christ or Woodland Forest. That's where I learned to harmonize. That's when I was confused because I was like, why are these people singing the same song, but it sounds different? I don't like this. I was 6. And I remember very vividly, like, I was not okay with that. And but then I realized, okay, it's the 1st, 3rd, 5th, the 7th. You know, they knew what they were doing. I just did not. But there is... You know, I was so lucky with my experiences. And the cool thing about where we're from, this was the Spanish border of Florida for hundreds of years, you know, so we all had to get along and things were going on. It was wars and Native Americans and Spanish and Indians and all kinds of stuff going on. But for the most part, everybody pretty much had to get along to survive. And that's what I love about this area. And it's something that me as a musician, it's easy to judge a book by its cover until the book opens its mouth, and then you kind of hear its story. So,
Yeah, religion plays a big part in the music of the South.
and Something in the Water, the name of the podcast, I think it speaks on that too. Actually, one of the songs that we brought today, I have a song too called Something in the
really?
Water. It's the first song I ever wrote, and a full song that I completed. I wrote it in Athens.
Cool.
I was missing home around 2013, 2014, and because I had moved from Colorado to Athens, wasn't too stoked about that. So when I got there, I said, well, what do I know? You know how to find a creek, dig in the dirt, play in the water, exactly what you did in South Georgia, do that up there. And so I wrote the song essentially speaking about this space and how it made me feel and how I feel when I'm here, to kind of remember that while I was gone.
Cool.
That's
Can't wait to hear
awesome. Yeah. Pokey Lafarge has a song called Something in the Water.
And
Probably several
a
songs.
country singer, female country singer. I can't remember.
Carrie Underwood has
Yeah,
one, I
okay.
think,
She
too.
does?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Mine was first. It shocked me because I
don't
was
know if
like,
mine was-
oh, wow.
I don't know what order mine came in.
No, I think at this point it's all part of the conscious ether collective at this point.
Sue me.
Well, here's another Valdosta name for you. I don't know. Let's see. Which high school did you go to over there?
So I graduated from Lowndes High School. I was a
Lowndes,
cheerleader and Miss Lowndes High School of 2005. The
Somehow I knew that was going to be the case.
We were the only undefeated state championship football winning team to ever come out of Lowndes. That was my senior year, and I was a cheerleader all the way from 6th grade through 12th. Won Miss LHS at the end of my senior year. But I started at Valdosta. So if y'all know anything about Valdosta and South Georgia, Valdosta is the ESPN title town.
Yeah.
So Lowndes and Valdosta, it's a huge rivalry
Yep.
for the blood, divides families. Not really. It's kind of a joke, but there is a lot of, there's some serious factor. I started at Valdosta. So I went exactly half of my time, K through the middle of 6th grade at Valdosta. And then the middle of 6th grade, we moved to Hayhira, Georgia, if anybody is familiar with that, which was almost like going back 50 years in time when we did that. But I finished at Hayhira Middle School and then went to Lowndes High School. And I'm very proud of both schools. And
Well, did you happen to know one of the football players with the last name? I ain't saying to be rude or anything. This is true.
okay.
This is a guy that grew it. In fact, he's going to be on. This is episode 95 as we speak, but he's going to be on episode 97 for the second time. His name is James Cock, Cocke. He was my next door neighbor growing up in Waycross.
Really?
As small children. We had a laugh together over here, next door neighbors.
Was he a teacher at Lowndes?
No, but he did father 3 Lowndes Football County Championship players. Luke Cock was, and now I don't know
The
how
twins.
close y'all's years would have been.
So
or
we
anything.
won,
And the twins.
they won 07. So I think the year after I graduated, they won that. They won. So technically, even though my class year was 2005, the football championship year was 04. So they won 04, which was 05 my senior year. They won the 05 football year, which was the 06 graduating year. And then I think they won it maybe one more time. There was a 1980 win, a 1999 win, which was my first year. The week we moved to Lowndes, they won the state championship. So I was like, oh, I'm bringing some of this good juju from Valdosta over here to Lowndes, because Valdosta is the most winningest high school football team in the country, which goes into that whole title town-esque. But yeah, it was pretty neat.
He had Luke was the oldest son, and I'm kind of thinking Luke may have been born in the late 70s or early 80s. Then
He'd have
so
been on
he
that
would have been
99
earlier,
team. Yep, he would have been the team that
right
won in
before the 2000s.
1999.
And then his brothers were twins. They would have been born maybe 2-3 years after Luke. And their names was John Paul and Jacob.
I bet they
John
were
Paul
my
and
year.
JP and Jacob Cock. I can't say. I'll ask James tomorrow when we tape tomorrow night.
They had to be my year because there wasn't, I don't think anybody won a state championship between 99 and that 2004
All right. Well,
football
there you
year.
go.
So, the class was so huge. We had over 600 people in my graduating class in 2005. Now they're up to about 900 per class. And I, as social as I am, I had tons of friends and I was really friends with everybody. Moving school systems, I knew what it felt like to be the new kid, and I never wanted anybody to feel that way. So, and the funny thing was, I was in band when I transferred. So that was really my first love, but I was a competitive gymnast and dancer. And the band director at Hey Hira had got wind of that. And I was about a year ahead of their class because I had started at Valdosta, and they really procure you from the 4th grade. It's an awesome program. And they kind of get you, they bring the instruments to your 4th and 5th grade music class at the end of the year, 4th
Let you
grade.
blow in a mouthpiece.
And so by the end of 5th grade, you know which instrument you're going to have on your first day of 6th grade. And Lowndes picked their instrument on the first day of 6th grade. So they were just now learning staff notation and scales and things in January when I had been doing that for about a year. So the band director, told me I had to choose, which I never thought that would ever be the case. And he said, I hear you like cheerleading and you got to choose. And so I just kind of made some observations and my antennas went up and used that musician sense. And I just said, well, okay, thank you. I'm praying that I make cheerleading because it just felt like maybe a producer once told me, Katie, that was your first introduction to the music industry right then. But it made me wise as a 12-year-old. Oddly enough, I never thought I'd have to make a decision between two things that I loved so much. So I went. He was basically telling me I had to leave. I didn't have a choice. And that broke my heart. I played flute. I was second chair flute at Valdosta. So that was tough. What?
Can you still play flute? You think you could pick it back up?
Yes, I can. I can still play. Why do you think B flat is what my, that's what's the interesting thing about the flute is B flat is my best register key for me to sing.
Vocally.
A lot of our songs are in B flat, and that's the first scale you learn on flute.
How about
I
that?
didn't know that.
B flat, yeah. I can totally still play that thing. I had a Gemeinhardt, and we got it from M&M
I
Music.
remember Gemeinhardt.
Well, I've got a flute. If we ever need to track some flute,
Ooh, there you
Well,
go.
your
So
girl
did you
can
play the
play.
flute too?
a little bit.
Yeah, why do
I,
you
I
have
tried
a
to
flute?
I tried to figure it out.
Yeah. You just tried to figure it out
Yeah,
without any
I
kind
had
of
no
training or
no
something.
knowledge of it at all. I just figured it out.
You
That's right.
figured it out?
Some a little bit. Not. I wouldn't want to perform in front of anybody with it.
I know they call embouchure
the-
in. Is that just limited to brass instruments, or is embouchure the same for all instruments?
No, it's not the
It's a
same.
lip,
but is it called? I'm sure for
So
Formation?
the brass, you're going to go.
right.
I taught band for 5 years in Athens too, at Clark County and Athens Academy, while I lived up there. Which is why I have this wide knowledge on this. But the brass, you're gonna, and honestly, that was the hardest. I wanted to play the trumpet so bad.
I played trumpet 7th and 8th grade. But
I'm so jealous.
it wasn't that great, but
But at least you could make a sound.
Yeah.
I couldn't even make the sound.
what was bad was, especially in beginning band, it was like everybody wanted to play saxophone, so you had like 13 saxophone players, and then there was one trumpet and a tuba guy.
You were the one trumpet.
Yeah, and so it was like saxophones, play your part. Some of them probably weren't even playing. Then it was like trumpet, and I go, and they're like, no, and then they scold me. I was like,
I could not decide, y'all, which instrument I wanted. So in 4th grade, when they came to Miss Armstrong's class, I was clarinet. Dude, Miss Johnny's daughter, Carissa, played clarinet at the VHS band. So when I was in third grade, she was 16 on the VHS marching band. I thought I was going to be a Valdosta cheerleader. That was my thing. Very glad I was a Lowndes cheerleader. But I thought because Carissa did clarinet, I wanted clarinet. I love the sound. I couldn't choose, y'all. I would have played 5 instruments if they would have let me. I really wanted to play the oboe and the bassoon, but you couldn't get there until 7th. No, you could play the oboe in 6th grade. Bassoon was 7th grade. And I was like, I want them all. I don't. Why can't I just play them all?
Aren't they basically the same thing? Just
Grander scale. They're double reeded instruments.
Double reed, yeah.
And it's kind of, I guess it would be equated kind of like going to tenor sax from alto sax or baritone sax from alto sax. But from what I understood, there were a lot of similarities. I just unfortunately never got that far with it.
It's a lot smaller mouthpiece.
Very small mouthpiece, very small reed. That double reed is smaller than my finger.
Yeah, it's like a little stem tube.
And you use the trumpet mouthing, actually. You kind of do that
Really?
buzz to get it. And I think that's truly why I was so drawn to teach music in Athens when I got out of graduate school. I sort of made a job for myself. I went to Clark County and I said, okay, I'm touring and playing, so I can't be a full-time teacher. I have a master's degree from Georgia. I want to be a sub, but I want to make my schedule. I want to be in a different music class, an art class, whatever you guys need me for every day. Sometimes they'd throw me in a social studies or a math, which was no problem. But middle school band seemed to be my class. Mr. Peridot taught at Clark Middle, and the orchestra teacher, Dr. Chang, was at the high school and the middle school. And I loved them. They loved me. I'm still trying to figure out how they had as many vacation days as they did to have me come in as much as I did.
You're the reason.
But I used all of my experiences from Mr. Roundtree and Zielinski at Valdosta Middle School, and that experience of me transferring over to Hey Hira and how profound it was and how it affected me going forward. And I used that when I taught those kids. And thank goodness I prayed. I made cheerleading every year for all the years. But even through my senior year, I wanted to be on that drum line. Luckily, I could be the cheerleader. I could still be right there with the band, but it never left. And cheerleading was me combining my two loves, music and gymnastics. So that's how that came to fruition. So I just kind of channeled that in when I moved to Athens. I moved from Vail, Colorado. I'd come back from being out west. And that's how it sort of happened in Athens.
Wow, that is you've been around,
But not like that.
no.
Golly.
You've been around geographically and musically.
That's the only way. You heard it here from the source.
That's right. Folks, I'm just talking about pom-poms, okay?
Well, that's another thing, too. I think that, but I'm 37 years old, and my debut record will be producing it this year. That process started 8 years ago. So
What'd you call it? AB record?
Debut.
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 Okay.
Yeah, my
I
first.
misheard.
I was like, I don't know. What did I say?
I was trying to figure out what an AB record was.
Our debut record, and we started it we started about in 2017, 2018, gearing everything up. I started playing shows at the Georgia Theater. That was actually my first gig with my band was in 2016 at the theater. Rick Pauls did me a solid. Yeah. Thank you, Rick. I'll forever be grateful. And put me on the roof and I actually played inside for my first show at the Georgia Theater, and because it rained. I ended up opening for Andrew Bird, Drew Holcomb and the Neighbors, all kinds of people up there. They brought me on and were so good to me. And then the Nowhere Bar right across the street, Dave's son Connor and Scotty and Derek and the guys I played with up there, it's just right across the street. So it's one and the same, but.
We love Nowhere Bar.
George Massey.
Good dude. I'm looking forward to introducing Garrett to these rowdy cast of characters. I've been telling him, I was like, you probably think it's like the movie Big Fish where the guy tells all these stories. And he's like, are these real people? I promise. I'm just glad to
Yeah,
have
you'll
some
find out
witnesses.
soon enough. They are characters, lovable characters.
And lovely, lovable. And I truly, my faith is so important to me. And I came back home to Georgia kind of kicking and screaming. I was not, somebody tells you have to move home from Vail, Colorado. I don't think you to the swamp or to the gnats and the heat. I wasn't stoked on that. But I didn't know what God had in store for me in Athens. And it was music was something that was so close to me. He was the only one that knew. I mean, when I lived in Valdosta, my friends were going to Remerton to the bars by the time we turned 21. And I bought a 61 key Casio keyboard from Toys R Us my junior year of college. And it only had 61 keys, but I vowed I was going to sit upstairs in my condo and learn on YouTube while all my friends were at the bars. I was going to be at home. And then I took another piano class at VSU my last semester. I did my undergrad at Valdosta and my graduate work at Georgia. But I mean, it was just incredible. I had no idea. So when these opportunities started presenting themselves, it was like, okay, this has to be divine because you're the only person that even knew. I would not have even mentioned that because you play piano and you play in a closet for 25 years until you're somewhat good and then you come out. It's not like guitar where you can bring it around a campfire and, piano is sort of different. We still struggle with that, transporting it, using a keyboard, using a spinet, using a baby grand because obviously the baby grands and spinets sound better live, but they're very heavy.
Very heavy.
And you have to transport them. So,
and tuning problems.
Tuning after you transport them. So, if Steinway or Yamaha is listening, we would love a sponsorship. I'm hoping once we get the record done that, things like that will eventually come. But I'm praying real hard for somebody else to tote that thing instead of us. So,
God, back in my days, we used to haul around Hammond C3. It's like, how many steps we got now? Up.
Yeah.
Did y'all ever play at Smith's Old Bar?
I've never played there.
I played there once with Lanny Strickland.
Okay.
If you've ever played there, so our show there was the summer of 2017, and there was a huge rickety metal staircase that went from the bottom. It was almost like 3 stories tall from the alleyway in the back where there was room for 3 cars to park in a dumpster.
Yeah.
And then this rickety 50-year-old rusted stairway. We had to tow, and that's sort of the rite of passage with Smith's, is that you tow all your stuff up there. You get to play upstairs in the main room. Yeah, do your thing. Go home, check that off the list. We had to load all of that stuff up
Horrible
there.
load in, yeah.
They took the stairs out 3 months after we played there.
I wonder how many keyboard players died.
Well, this one almost did because it was crazy. But, that was where I first started realizing, okay, this is going to be a thing, essentially. But I think it'll all work out.
You could always go to Keytar.
Dude, that's cool.
I could figure it out.
Yeah.
So how did y'all come together? How did that happen?
So, interestingly enough, being from Valdosta, there is a music store there owned by Mr. Ben Owens, where my brother actually took guitar lessons from 12 to 14. And then they said, we can't teach you anything else. So see ya, which wasn't a bad thing. But my brother was actually my biggest guitar influence. So
What's his name?
Nolan Blanton Ball. He is actually a smoke jumper in West Yellowstone, Montana, and is a prodigy guitar player.
Wow.
And at some point, I'd love for he and my cousin Paul to sit in and play with us. There will be a time, but right now he is a lunatic jumping out of airplanes, having the time of his life, skiing every day. And I told him, he slept on my floor on a mattress in my 400 square foot tiny house, historic house in Athens, my last semester of graduate school, and worked the night shift at the Dunkin' Donuts and the Firehouse Subs while I was sleeping. And during the day when I went to grad school, my last semester, he would sleep, and we'd switch off in that little tiny house on Carlton Terrace off of Lumpkin. And I told him, I said, I'm going to give you my go back out west card. I was supposed to go back, and I'm going to give it to you and go out there and have at it, because I knew I was touring. I went on the road with the Drive-By Truckers that summer that I finished. My partner was their sound engineer, so I got to take some glorious, awesome trips with them. And he's been out there, got his dream job last year, and we're so proud of him. But I keep telling him I'm going to snatch him back at some point to put him to work. But he's incredible. So basically, when I moved home, this was around Thanksgiving, I think, or right before Christmas of this year.
Right before Christmas.
Yeah, because I had been home for about 2.5 years at that point. COVID, up and down. We had tried working on the record 3 different times. It was always everybody would start getting sick again. And I spent some time this last year writing some new material, getting everything situated for the record. But I wanted to learn slide guitar. That's one of the only things that, kind of like with piano, I knew I could always play it. And I feel that way about slides. So I went to Ben's, was talking to a guy, Chase Crawford, there about teaching me. Chase was on the phone. We kept playing phone tag. So I went up there, and another guy that works there named Dave, who was actually worked at Valdosta State in the communications department that I got my degree from, who your lovely wife also went to school there. And Dave, I was on my way out, and I saw a guy's number posted on the wall. And I asked David, I said, hey, what's this guy's deal? Is he good? And he was like, don't call him. I've got somebody else's number to give you. And Garrett, it was Garrett's. Garrett teaches there. And so, I guess it was that afternoon or the next day, Garrett reached out and was the most prompt, on time. Brought Rylan on, brought Joe on. We formed, a new live band over the last 6 to 7 months. Written a couple of new songs since we've been together. But Rylan, another 1 degree of separation, he did his drum college schooling at VSU at the drum program. And one of his good friends is Mason Rackley, who is our friend from Athens, who's the drum tech for Snarky Puppy.
Oh, wow.
That's our buddy. And so everybody and I already had a 1 degree of separation. And then when he brought Joe on, Joe's younger brother, Jim, and I grew up together. And Joe was best friends with Austin, Bill's son. So it was just like, these were who were meant to be. I didn't ask any questions from there.
Kind of fell in line, huh?
And God tells you he'll give you an army, and he delivered.
What if you could describe your original sound, what would that?
Southern Gothic blues.
Southern Gothic blues.
So rock and Southern Gothic blues. I know I don't look like that. Most people think I get the, where's your acoustic guitar? What you play? A little bit of country?
Right.
Dude, I love Metallica, Rage Against the Machine. But I'm from South Georgia. Right. So, and I love, oddly enough, Scandinavian rock music like Maiden and Ghost and, those big produced sounds. And I love a lot of British rock. I love Keane. I love Muse. Muse is one of my favorite bands. Panic, Widespread Panic, I think was my first. My first concert was Red Akins in the 3rd grade at VSU. My dad knew Buzz, his dad. My dad was a Georgia State patrolman. And oddly enough, Garrett's best friend is John Brooks Akins, Rhett's nephew. Okay. And so my daddy convinced Buzz to let us in the door. We had to go to row double Z all the way at the top without a chair at the VSU complex. And Panic actually played there a couple of years after that. And I caught the bug in high school and went to my first show in St. Augustine when I was in college and had no idea I would wind up recording and producing with their producer, John Keane, in Athens. But life has a funny little way of working out. So somewhere between all of that is where I fall. So with a little outlaw country.
Well, that suggests some of those pictures that I saw on your Facebook. A lot of your, post pictures, like publicity photos and
sure.
stuff like that. There was some back dirt roads and rivers and shutter delay thing going on for one. That I swear
the
to God,
ghost one.
you was like you were here, kind of like clutching your neck or something like that, and then the next one was a little bit lighter and lighter. It's
That was Photoshop.
spooky.
So I took that picture on the Broad River in Athens at 7:00 in the morning in the middle of February in 2016. Had 2 different outfit changes, changed in the woods, and that dress, I wanted to give, I don't know, the vibe of how it was here. You almost can't see the forest for the trees when you're down here, and I had to leave to really appreciate how
That's what I had to do,
beautiful. You get it too. God had such a plan for me, and part of that plan was to appreciate where I came from, because by the time I left Valdosta, I was ready to go out of there, which is part of the reason I moved 2,000 miles away, pretty much as far as I could get. And the funny story behind that is I did not want to hear Wagon Wheel one more time. Sorry, Old Crow. I love y'all. And I love Wagon Wheel, but didn't want to hear
Right.
that. And I move all the way to Colorado, and that's the first song
First song you heard.
in Vail. And the guy playing it was from Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, wow.
From a band named Catfish Jenkins in Athens. His name was Wes Yoakum, and he brought me up on the stage because I was sitting there. Said, "You want to sing a song? What do you know?" I said, "You got any Panic?" And we sang Airplane by Widespread Panic, and that was in 2010. So, it just goes to show you can try to get out of here, and it'll snatch you right back. It'll follow you and then bring you right back.
Yeah.
That's it.
Garrett, what are your influences musically?
Musically,
Or rock climbers? Who's your favorite bricklayer?
everything.
Yeah.
I listen to almost everything from like Aboriginal music to modern like extreme metal, and everything in between. If it's good to me,
that's us. When Pine Box is going down the road, we can listen to a good polka or anything like metal or anything. We get into it all.
what's that?
We listen to it all, everything, every genre.
I'm deaf, by the way.
Okay. Oh, yeah. And I'm a mumbler, so.
I think some of my major influences would be like Robin Trower, Jimi Hendrix, Thin Lizzy,
Stevie Ray.
some Sabbath, Stevie Ray, of course. Hoyt Axton.
Oh, yeah.
Hoyt Axton.
Oh,
We've
yeah.
had many conversations on here about Hoyt Axton.
He's my favorite songwriter of all time.
Really? That's cool.
He's amazing. Stuff like that. The Allman Brothers, obviously.
Yeah, if you didn't say Dickie Betts, I was going to slap you.
Because he's his twin, isn't he?
Yeah, I was like, man, you look like Dickie Betts.
Here's the crazy thing is Garrett's birthday is 4/11 and mine's 4/22, which is Earth Day. Well, he passed away on the 18th, right in between both of our birthdays. And Barry Oakley passed away on 11/11, which is my cousin Paul's birthday. And so there's kind of
Some kind of thread at
there's
work
some
there.
kind of thread, and so we're just here to take the torch and to do it justice, I think. And I think your shirt is perfect that you wore today from the
We
big
went
house.
through a few weekends ago. We came through Macon and going from.
Yeah, I try to go by there every time I'm in Macon. That and Rose Hill.
Yeah.
an H&H.
Got it.
Yeah, we ate at H&H that day. We did the whole thing. But we were
It's
coming
all
from Griffin playing there.
Also
Had-
changed,
It
from when
has.
I was there back in the 70s. I mean, there wasn't no fence up around the graves. There wasn't as many because by then that was only Dwayne and Barry at that time.
I have a funny story. You know how iPhone makes a video and it'll just throw it on you some mornings and give you PTSD when you didn't expect it? So this morning, guess what comes up on my phone? Macon Trip 2019, all Rose Hill Cemetery, all Allman Brothers, all
boy.
from that one day popped up this morning. I sent it
Wow.
to Garrett at 9 o'clock. I'd show it to y'all, but I can't. But I'll show it to you when we get done. But I just looked at that as a God nod too for today, and just the two of. I actually have a bolo stone, and I'm sorry, state of Georgia. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry anyway. I found a Native American bolo stone on the side of the fence where the jasmine is, next to Dwayne and Barry's graves, and then Greg's is over here, and there's some space in between. And I, being the adventurer explorer from South Georgia that I am, I was there for hours at the cemetery just by myself, and I crawled up the side of the fence, and where that jasmine bush was, I noticed there were some stones, and one of them was a perfectly round quartzite bolo stone. And I was like, I'm going to just put it in my pocket and take it with me and leave it on my piano at home. And it sat on my keyboard ever from 2018 or 19. I think I was on the way back down to Valdosta. It was during my move from Athens, and I came a couple of times to get everything down here. And that stone still sits on my piano, and I take it with me
Cool.
when I play sometimes. And just, I don't know, just one of those little things that
Those stones, my wife is totally into them.
it's a thing. They hold energy
Yeah.
for sure.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't know what a quartz bolo is, but it's round, and that didn't happen just by accident.
That's exactly right. And there's a thumb notch in it too. So, and that's always from I didn't go to school for Native American history. My grandfather and my great-grandfathers in South Georgia and North Florida, the ones who were actually Native American are the ones that taught me everything I know about an arrowhead. And you feel it. When there's one in the ground, it'll tell me to look down. I mean, the spirit just speaks to me. And
I can attest to that.
yeah. Yeah, for sure. Garrett has gotten some nice ones too.
Yeah, I've got a collection going, and some days I'll just I'll get a feeling. If I go look, it'll be there,
Wow.
and it is.
And they're right there.
Wow.
And it's
I've always been interested in going to look for Artifacts Lab. I've never gone and talked to Kyle about it, Kyle Kelly.
oh yeah.
But
That's how I got to know him, was through his YouTube, because in 2014, when I lived in that little tiny historic cottage with my what was mine until Blanton moved in for a couple months. We had that year snow. We had 3 snowstorms and then an earthquake that year, that spring. And I was lived behind the main house on our property. I kind of kept watch over it. My landlord's family owned the Princeton Mill in Athens, which is coming right up Lumpkin on the way to Millage, and they had the house there since 1910, and my guest house was put there in like 1929. But I did not know this until after I made this discovery, but I lived on the highest point in Clark County. The geo marker was right by my house. I ended up finding a cache of 60 arrowheads in the yard of all different types, black chert flint that I knew was from the Flint River in Albany that looked nothing like the rocks in North Georgia. I studied geology with Dr. Chatelaine in college at VSU. So I had a little bit of knowledge about, I first uncovered like 3 or 4 white quartz points. I thought they were cool, made a little necklace with it, didn't realize that they were arrowheads or points, tools. And every time it would rain under this rain gutter by the old house, there would be more arrowheads every time. And finally, by the time I was done after 2 months, there were 60 different iron rock, which I knew, dating the rocks, all of them were between 2,000 to 10,000 years old. The flint was the newest. It had been heat treated. That's where the color came from. But this iron green rock that sounds like metal when you bang it together, that was from North Georgia. The church was from Tennessee. What was it doing in Athens? Like all these questions were coming through my head. And so that's really what got me. Like I said, I got to Athens and did what I knew how to do, play in the dirt and the water. And it went from there. And I found Kyle's YouTube page, actually, before I came back to Valdosta, and recognized one of those fields as being from South Georgia and ended up messaging him. And we ended up kind of just meeting each other over social media and things like that, over in Arrowhead. So,
Cool.
What's his YouTube channel? Wild
Wild Kyle.
Wild Kyle. I was trying to tell somebody about that the other day.
Oh,
And
he's
what's
got a
that
great
craft
thing going.
called? It's not spelunking. But his is called something. What he does is.
It is. It's got a name.
Yeah, I can't remember it. But
Well, and the cool,
what was your major then?
for undergrad or grad school.
Both.
So my undergrad degrees are in speech communication. It's a PR degree from Valdosta, and I got a sociology minor there. And then at Georgia, I did health and medical journalism is what my master's degree is in from the Grady School of Journalism. Go Dogs. I went to Boston for a fellowship, Denver, at UC Denver, and then my post-grad fellowship was at Stanford in Palo Alto. So, yes, I blew the back out of academia, only to realize I still wanted to be broke and play music and still do this or pursue the dream, I'll say, which I would do all over again if I had the opportunity.
Did you ever know the Woodgrains?
Why does that name sound familiar?
They were a
in
Waycross
Athens?
band, and they
Yeah.
But they
moved
were
to
out of
Athens.
They were out of Athens. They were there when I got there. I feel like they might have left around 15 or 16.
I think that was about right.
And that was right. So so my first gig ever, I had been in Athens 3 weeks. I moved there at the tail end of 2011, and I meet my friend Clay Leverett and he was the drummer for Bright Eyes, and I went on tour with REM and was really big buds with them. And they were REM was disbanding as I moved to Athens. So Clay took me to all that stuff, and we come home one night, and it was really late, and I lived in this crazy house that had 3 different apartments in it, somebody living underneath it, somebody living upstairs, always people there on Waddell Street. And Clay and I wheel in, and 3 guys are standing outside, Jason and Brandon. And Brandon and Clay had known each other their whole lives. Brandon was a drummer. His name was Brandon Hicks. Jason Bradbury was his friend's name, and they were there, and we all start talking shop, and they're like, "You've got to meet Brandon. He has a Genesis cover band." And I was like, my mom said I popped out knowing every song that Genesis had ever wrote in 1987 and Sting and the Police. And Brandon was the only person that I ever met that even knew who Genesis was, because being born in 87, the class of 05 at Lowndes, nor Valdosta knew who Genesis was, which was kind of hard for me. But Brandon and I immediately clicked. Long story short, come to find out 7 years later, Brandon is my cousin.
Oh, wow.
My grandmother's mother's name was America Lavinia Hicks. She was a Native American from Madison. They were the original Cherokee Native American family that came down when the nation fell. Madison was named Hickstown before it was called Madison, and it was always like a sub-nation in between St. Augustine and Capitola, which was Tallahassee. And then it was like a sub-nation south of Cherokee, North Carolina, from what I understand. But that's another reason why the Swanee River is such a big platform of mine and so huge. My grandmother grew up on 200 acres at the confluence of the Swanee and the Withlacoochee River in Lee, on River Road, White Sand Road, and there's nothing for miles, but that was part of me writing Something in the Water, the pull. I mean, that river is so special. It's actually the only untouched waterway and unpolluted waterway in the state of Florida. want to say in the South, and I think that's because the native spirits protect it. And if you're not from there, I wouldn't want to be down there when the sun goes down because it's it's spooky. You know, it's that Southern Gothic. I'm from there; it's in my blood. I feel at home. But from what I'm told by others who come to Swanee Park or would go to Wani, I remember. I mean, just all those great festivals back in the day. There's something special about that place.
You realize
where
how
we're from.
much that's true. I mean, did you ever see Muscle Shoals documentary?
Oh my goodness!
And the
we talked-
beginning of it,
the
you know, where it
rivers.
says the river. There's the Indians, you know, the lives of the people that surrounded it in the history of that area. You know, there was so much tragedy in and around a lot of that back in those days. But when you got bodies of water, it seems like there's a certain something that happens around the water, brought on by the fact that the water is there, you know, and it is spiritual.
It is, and I think baptism too goes back to that. You know, the cleansing, the frequency. There's a symbolism
in the water.
There's something,
And,
and
civilizations always
they go to
They
water.
go to water.
That's
They go
how
to
I
water.
found the arrowheads. So I found an ancient, well, not ancient, but a spring map from 1906 from the state of Georgia that the Geological Society had made. I actually found out they had disbanded that society, which state of Georgia, if you're listening, we would love to get that back. But this map was from 1906, and it had all the mineral springs around the state of Georgia on there. And I found it when I was in Athens, and there were about 100 of those springs on there, and I hit up about 60 of them. That was one of the things I did. And the funny thing about that Muscle Shoals documentary is when I had to move back to Georgia, that's the first movie I watched right before I moved to Athens. And Garrett and I were just talking about this week because they make a statement about Aretha Franklin in that movie that I never forgot. And they talk about her doing one take and her only having to do one take. And I did not know I was going to get picked up by a nationally touring band 3 weeks after moving to Athens. So I wasn't viewing that film from that lens. I was just kind of watching it and picking it up. And they said she had to do one take. And so I always remembered that and wanted to, you know, that to be me. And the first time I ever recorded with John, with Grassland String Band, we had been in the studio all day. I'd waited till the end. I'd been in there for 8 hours and didn't say anything and was the last one in the booth and went in there to do my take, and everybody came back in, and I went and did it one time, just like Aretha,
Right.
and went back in the booth and I walked in and everybody looked like this. And I was like, did I mess up? And they were like, no. And John said, let's just run it a second time just to say we have two tracks. But the first track was the track we used. And
Usually is the best.
that's what I've often heard too. And that and her saying she better have a sack of money on the green room table before she goes and walks out onto the stage. And so I've learned two really great life musical lessons from old Aretha, and I appreciate that. But that documentary was absolutely profound because when they mentioned the rivers, Valdosta and North Florida was exactly what I thought about, because you hear about Muscle Shoals and the truckers. See, this is also what's crazy. Blessing and a Curse was my favorite record when I was 19 years old. And that was one of the last records Jason Isbell did with them. I played that thing out. I had no idea all these records that I played and listened to, I'd have direct, workings with these people. Talk about music being a crazy thing. But that's why I encourage kids, and also why I wanted to be in the school system and have some sort of a place to teach and just show, to be an example, because you can't really tell somebody that. They kind of have to see that, if that makes any sense, of how that all works. But had Bill not put that seed in me, it would have never started. So I feel like I have to pay it forward. And that's sort of, even through my career, what I intend to do. So
Heck yeah.
The magic. The magic that happens. And I think you bring it about yourself. Some people are certainly more intuitive and into it more than others, and it's kind of like Marty Stewart, Marty Stewart's sitting up there as a child, and one of his favorite singers is Connie Smith. And he goes and hears her at the fair, the local fair in Mississippi. And when he's 10 years old, comes back home and says, Mama, I'm going to marry that girl.
This is a beautiful story. I love this story.
What did he do?
He
Married
married her. So crazy story. Marty came to the Foundry. I know right before we started, you mentioned that I had been in the Americana Music Festival with Abe Partridge. You had seen that. And we did. We played that at the Foundry in Athens together. And we're going to probably have to pause it because I just had a brain fart. What were we talking about before?
We was talking about Marty Stewart.
I was like, I didn't smoke any weed. Don't put that on the podcast.
You can't say that on the podcast.
No,
Weed.
Cut that out. Yeah. Okay. So I'd played this festival at the Foundry, and Marty Stewart was scheduled to be there like a week or two later. And so our friend Josh, who would come over to the house and practice with all of us. He wasn't in my band in Athens. I had other guys that were in my band there and formed a new band when I came down here. But Josh was like, I'm going to see Marty Stewart. I'm going. And we couldn't go. We either couldn't get tickets. We had something for our schedule was planned. He goes, I'm going. And we hear a knock at Jason's door late that night, about 12 o'clock, the night of the show. And we're like, who is this? We open the door. Dude, it's Josh with a guitar signed by every member of the band. He just sticks it through the doorway. And Jason and I go nuts. And handsome. I mean, just like everybody, every single player in the band talked to Marty. We were like, tell us all about it. We're not worthy. Didn't even see it, but felt like we did. And I remember hearing that story, and that's a manifestation.
Yeah.
And that right there can show you, if he can do it, I can do it, anybody can do it.
When he played at the fairgrounds at the Grand Parsons Festival, man, I wasn't ready.
That man can, if I can only put on half a show like them,
amazing.
What a great influence.
He's one of the supreme beings.
And he's up there with Clarence White's original B-bender, the first B-bender.
The first
The
B-bender.
first.
And I'm like, get that somewhere
He
else.
leaves.
He's out here.
He's never cleaned. He's never
cleaned.
cleaned the crevices in there. He said that's some magic dust in there.
Huh.
Oh man,
They did something to
There's
Athens
two
when they
Telecaster
came
bodies
through.
put together.
Yeah.
You know about the guitar?
No.
So who built it?
Gene Parsons and Clarence White were the two.
Yeah, they came up with the idea
originators
of
the
the
idea
B-bender.
of the B-bender. Yeah.
So they put two. So it's like this thick because it's two Tele bodies, and so they could hollow it out, put the mechanism in there. But man, just that thing should be in a museum. But I'm glad he's playing it. I was
Clarence's wife was the one that gave it to him. Just practically,
yeah.
I want you to have this.
So when
That's pretty smart on her part, really.
we met,
who best to
Get past the torch,
give
right?
that guitar a new life,
when we recorded with Don Helm, he was talking about how Marty wanted to buy Old Red, the Gibson console.
That's one of the things.
He does have kind of like a little museum of his own going on, with
Yeah.
clothes and guitars and stuff. It's wild.
That's what's so cool about music. And I think that's the beauty of being from South Georgia too, is we're so innovative. We have laws, but we don't have rules. We have our own rules, and the laws of physics are the laws down here. And that's what I love so much about science, and why I know so much about science is because I lived down here. And science is proof that God exists to me. It's the way we can just have a proof besides the multitude of proof that we already have. But, there's so many great things about being from down here, and that energy, like you're saying, with the water is it.
Yeah, and through the water, and a lot of it being in the south like that. You got Mississippi River with the mouth of the delta is the mouth of the river, and it just cuts all the way up to Chicago.
That was where I had my first live gig. So the band that I was telling y'all I got picked up with 3 weeks after I moved to Athens, Brandon and Jason ended up calling me, wanting me to be a part of a touring band contracted out by Ameristar Casinos. So they said, you've got 6 weeks. We're going to practice in town with Brandon and Jason and you meet the 65-year-old guitar player when we get to Vicksburg at the Riverboat Casino. And it was on from there. I was 24 and
What's the name of the band?
their name was Shebang.
Shebang.
Chuck had that band name for years. And at that point, Jason had been playing in the band for 12 years. Their drummer had gotten sick, so they brought Brandon on and me. Their female singer had left, and it just, because of that chance meeting, that night after the REM farewell, we all got to link up, and Jason said you could sing, right? And I almost said no because I was the cheerleader. My mother was the singer and the thespian, and I know about Tina Turner and Aretha because of my mom. So I almost said no because that really wasn't my thing. But I said yes, and I'm so glad I did. My life would be so different had I not. But they took me, and we picked up Chuck in Montgomery, headed to Vicksburg, and my only job was after those 4 nights of playing at 3:00 on Sunday morning when we were done, it was my job to drive the 1985 Dodge van back to Athens, 8 hours with no sleep after playing 4 days.
Give it to the girl.
But that was my job, and buddy, I've made sure I did right, and it was one of the greatest learning experiences. It was wild because I was like, here I am busting hump to pay rent, buy food, and travel. And I can use this talent, and y'all are giving me all this stuff. I have a free casino room to myself. We went to Hinckley, Minnesota. I turned 25 on the stage at the casino in Hinckley, Hattiesburg. And Warren Haynes had just come out with a song called the Hattiesburg Hustle. So a couple of years before that. So, I mean, that's when I started noticing things kind of connecting.
Yeah.
And the Muscle Shoals documentary, when I moved home.
Was it a cover band?
It was a cover band. So
Well, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it was spelled S-H-E. Bang.
you know what? It might have been.
She bang.
It might have been because of the girl.
The girl lead
lead
singer.
singer.
Yeah, she bang. And I think that's how you spell shebang.
I think
The
it
whole
is.
shebang. S-H-E-B-A-N-G.
I think you're right.
Yeah, Shazam.
Well, and I was just glad to be there. I was just tickled pink. I could not believe. It was just.
You got an education.
It was
out of that.
amazing.
That
I
was
also
good.
got carded and kicked out during sound check. The security guy, the second time we played in Vicksburg, we're up there sound checking, and the guy said, it was the coolest stage, y'all. It was this half moon stage set up high with the maroon theater curtain. And then below that was an open bar. But on the bar were casino games. So people could drink, play the touch screens. The pool machines were over here. There were seats, a wood dance floor, and then seats behind that, and then the escalators. So it was huge. It was this beautiful area
That is cool.
for sound. And they kicked me out. The security guy came up to me during sound check. I went to sit in the chair to listen to all the speakers. And I hear somebody tap me on or feel somebody tap me on the shoulder. And I look up and he's like, you need to come with me. And I was like, yes, sir. And he's like, we need your ID. I said, I'm 24 years old. We don't believe you. 2 people have reported you being in here underage. And I said, I'm the entertainment. Like, what are you talking about? But that's really the only trouble that I've ever had.
Good.
I hope they got fired.
Looking too young, I don't think that's a bad
That's not a
problem,
bad
right?
thing.
I hope it's good for record sales. That's what we joke about now. But the South, God was like, you're going to run from the South, and I'm going to bring you right back and give you a full-fledged lesson. But I appreciate it so much, and there's so much here to be grateful for.
Mm-hmm. You ever seen that artwork of the state of Georgia that somebody's done, and it's all over the place now, but it's got the artist from that certain area plastered into the
Yeah, I've
map,
seen
you
that.
know.
Do you know who's
Very
doing that?
colorful.
They're
I don't
beautiful.
know. Yeah, they are. It's,
Steve owns Plant Cafe. His wife did one of her own.
she did?
Yeah. I think it's just Pine Box around.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Probably got your name on there too.
Because they got Graham Parsons on the original map. They got Graham Parsons right down here in our little corner of the world.
That's so special too. And you know, my brother was the one that told me about him
Yeah.
initially before I knew you, before I put the two and two together with you and Bill. And I think that's such a beautiful thing too, because I know that we're doing with my record. I want to do something great for the state of Georgia. What other girl rockers come out of Georgia? You know, like I'll wait, we'll wait. But it's taking the village. It's taking the entire state to get it done. And it's not been a one in, one out, 1 year thing. You know, I've been working for 13 years with these songs. Granted, they were mostly all finished 4 years ago, but COVID opened up such a larger door than I could ever have imagined, and more opportunities for more people to be on the record and for us to record with and things like that that probably wouldn't have happened the year that we initially tried to start it. So it's cool.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, probably both of them will be on our stage this year at the 27th annual Graham Parsons Guitar Pool right here in Waycross.
And I have a special surprise to tell you about that. So I have a friend from New York that plays pedal steel, and his teacher was Sneaky Pete.
Oh, boy.
And if we get to come, I'm calling John Catfish Delora. Hey, buddy. And I'm going to see if he wants to come and sit in with us and play steel.
Oh, man, that's
And,
great.
yeah.
Right now, because, you know, when we spoke, I was telling you, open spots at this thing are very rare because of all the people who have come and supported this festival with their talent.
The forefathers that have come before us.
The forefathers that
and mothers.
People
And
are kind
them
of
mothers.
grandfathered in at this
They
point.
are grandfathered in, kind of like the old realty term. So I give them first shot. You know, when I come up with the dates for the next one, I always hit the regulars first, and they'll say, yeah, and then but as we're getting closer and closer to it, somebody will hurt their back, or somebody will bang themselves up in a car wreck, or somebody will have some reason, you know, and that's about the only way that a new act can kind of slide in there, you know.
Yeah.
And when we talked a month ago or so, since then there has been an opening. I think it's
Well, that's two surprises in. You got me.
5:00 on the main stage on Friday. Now, we could flip you out or we could leave you in, but if we flipped them from Thursday night to a Friday gig on the main stage, we could bring somebody else in on the
Thirsty.
Stagecoach show. Page Brothers, they're so incredible. They're from around there.
They're from
Page
Adale.
Brothers.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
they're from
They are.
Adale.
Exactly. They do a lot of Stagecoach shows with us.
I was listening to some Page Brothers this morning.
They're hard not to listen to.
They're great. And that was good to see because the Page Brothers, Bird Chamberlain, Dirty Bird and the Flu, because I've been out of the scene in Valdosta. I'd been gone for about 15 years. And, you know, when I left, JP's, you know, anybody that knows anything about old Valdosta, you know, Reamerton was bumping and JP's was crunking. So I've gone all over the country and people find out I'm from Valdosta and they're like, what do you know JP's? Because Derek Truggs would play there when he was like 12. And they live in Jacksonville. And the crazy thing is my great-grandfather was actually the mayor of Jacksonville. That's why I was in Jacksonville playing the C-sharp octave on my cousin Paul's.
Which mayor was he?
George Marcellus Nolan. So he was the mayor up until 1906, right before the fire.
Way back.
So his brother is Claude Nolan, who owned the first Cadillac dealership in the
Claude
country.
Nolan.
Yep, that was
Yeah,
my
I
Uncle
remember that
Claude.
name.
And they just sold the dealership a couple of months ago. I guess that's both I get cars from both sides of my family. My mama's family she's a Blanton from Valdosta, or Clyteville, actually. Let me get direct. So all the land Wild Adventures is on was all of our family's land. And my great granny's house is still right past there that all the kids grew up in and still own all the land. And
Lord.
so I get it honestly.
Yeah. Valdosta was my stomping grounds musically in my early years. The King of the Road was my spot.
Man, my mother still got gigs when I was a child. She had me at 27, so it's not like she was 18 or anything taking me to gigs, but she would take us. It's kind of how I learned a lot of what I learned. That King of the Road dressing room, I smell it. Like I see, that was my favorite place she ever took me. And she did pageants, but she put me in one time called the Little Miss Spirit of Patriotism. I was 7, and she did it was at Mathis Auditorium, which is where Ray Charles played, actually, in Valdosta. A little bit of history. She was the talent, sang Putting on the Ritz and Hero by Mariah Carey. So they would call her, she and Chris Coleman did a lot of stuff growing up. If you remember Chris, he owned the Mill House and did a lot of music stuff. But my mom was, like me, very straight-laced. And so she wasn't out, so they would call her to do other things like that. And learned so much. And I'd like for Valdosta to begin to have some more venues like that are less alcohol focused and more entertainment, because they had a moon stage. It was dark in there.
When
When you were
started
describing that,
talking about
I've
that,
never
I
been
said,
to King of the Road, but I've heard
it's
him
that
talk about it
half
so
moon
much, I was
coming
like,
out of
"Was
the
that King of
corner,
the Road?"
and then the parquet dance floors,
Yes.
a little bigger half moon, and then the first layer is tables.
It was incredible.
was
So those
wonderful.
circular tables, right?
Oh my God, the booths,
The booths.
on the second level
shells,
would look like
The
seashells.
step up.
seashells.
It was so. We'll have to Google some pics for you, Garrett, to show you.
God,
It's
that
amazing.
This was in
incredible
Valdosta?
times.
At the Quality Inn on the way to your house.
It's
across
the
from
Best Western now.
The Best Western, where the Dairy Queen is. that
Okay.
they built.
Yeah, and there was nothing there in 1975 when
probably
I
woods.
walked in there.
That was
Woods
it.
and then that building.
The campground, and the people would come from the campground to the Best Western and King of the Road. You could eat. Ooh, they're
Oh, yeah.
Sunday. After
Was
church.
Valdosta good for music?
Oh yeah,
It was
yeah.
phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, it was its own thing back then. You had people like our competition. Eddie Middleton was our lead singer.
Okay.
That we backed up. I don't know if you've heard that name before, but he played briefly in King David and the Slaves after Randall Bramlett left.
Oh, Randall, I worked with Randall and that whole, that's the crew up in Athens that
That's right.
we were connected
Yeah.
with.
And so I had a brain fart. Kind of went like,
I was going to say, like, that.
I
passed it to you. Like the trumpet.
like the trumpet. Anyhow, long stories, good stories. There was a lot of clubs, a big music scene there. Of course, a sprawling city. You had the Air Force, the college, the locals, the outer boroughs, the Hayhires and the
Clydevilles and the Lake
and the
Parks.
Quitmans.
This is a Morven. Don't let him fool you. This
I
is
love
a
Morven. I remember Morven, Pavo.
Goodness gracious alive. Yeah.
There's something about Valdosta. There's something in the water. The musicians.
I loved it, man.
Insanely
I loved
good.
that
Absolutely
experience
incredible.
playing there in that period of time right there.
And I'm so thankful. I truly believe God created me to be kind of this medium to connect the old to the new, because it explains why I had so many dabblings in all of that old Valdosta scene. And, I was told too, even back in the days before that, Jimmy and Jesse, the duo, they would lived at Cherry Lake.
Really?
And that Cherry Lake was a thriving artist community. And my family being from Madison, I know some of my other family lived at Cherry Lake too. I learned to water ski at Cherry Lake in February. And
I used to play at Cherry Lake a lot.
At the VFW?
VFW.
I knew that's what you were going to say. I have so many great memories there. Well, the cool thing is my boyfriend from high school and college is one of the owners of Ag Pro, Stephen Stone, and the John Deere Company. Okay. And so I grew up, my dad's from Thomasville and my mom's from Clyattville. And I tell people what they get is up to them. If you get the Thomasville out of me or the Clyattville. But I spent a lot of time in Brooks County. I made some friends over there, spent a lot of time. And so one of my near and dear best friends, her cousin is one of Garrett's best friends. And so when I moved home, that was another 1 degree of separation that sort of gave me the nod that these are good people. These are the people. Because I feel just like what you said, we're a quality of musician down here because we don't have the commercialism and the egoism. We play because we love it. We play to survive. Like, I didn't even know that was something that I could do until Jason called me and said, you said you could sing, right? And I was like, wow, what are we doing? Where are we going? Whoa, had no clue, just catapult. And that's, what Mr. Jim told me and other people that I worked with, like my work ethic. They loved that, I didn't drink and my work ethic. I showed up on time and I'm like, dude,
That means a lot.
what I did at home. That's what we were taught to do. My grandpa worked at the paper mill for 40 years and my mother was a mortgage banker and, work. We know how to work. So, I think that's got a lot. I think between all of those facets, it has something to do with it. Another really cool thing, Panic, in 2010, the year I graduated college, and the best year of Wani ever, changed my mind. Their Tunes for Tots, they do a big donation every year, a big show where all the money goes to a certain school or a group of kids that year that need the instruments. Y'all, that year they donated $35,000 worth of money and instruments to J.L. Newbern Middle School in Valdosta. Cool. And here's, I guess I'll let the cat out of the bag now. One of my piano players and drummers that plays with us now is one of those kids that went to school there. His name is Michael Alexander.
Yeah.
And just another full circle.
Another full circle moment.
Really cool thing going on there. So
what goes around comes around. Or as Phil Walden was quoted as saying, he said, if you do good, good will come to you.
That's right. My mama lives right next to their old house at the lake now. And it's for sale up there. Somebody's redone it. It's beautiful.
And I'm assuming that the opposite of that is true, too.
It is definitely
true.
If
you do bad.
Trust me.
Well, let's look at I ain't got but a few pictures to look at right here. And give us your word on your. I haven't gone and made it this stringent, but describe each picture with one word, and then.
We can't even see.
Oh, this is our test?
Tell us a little story about it. Not these. No. These are Tale of the Week, but the other ones that are. There they are. The first three. The top three, left to right. All right, one word.
Southern Gothic.
That's two words, but I don't care.
We'll hyphenate.
What in the hell is this?
What is that?
Is that you with something?
So that's also Photoshop.
Okay.
So that is like an old Southern Gothic style house, kind of like my granny.
Spice cabinet or something.
With a cabinet. And that is not even me.
Okay.
That is a picture I found that I fell instantly in love with. I was in Athens. I think that was 2016. That's a black and white motif. So that was right when I first started doing.
Do the Photoshop?
Yes, but
now she must have been really ugly in the face for you to do that.
She was gorgeous. But here's my theory. I had kind of a hard time. I'm so comfortable on stage. It's where I feel where I belong, not in the crowd, which is kind of how I made my way up to the stage in Vail that night. But if it was up to me, I would wear a lampshade on my head when I played. I think because you'll notice I keep my eyes closed a lot when
do
I
too.
sing because it keeps me focused. My subconscious stays on. As soon as my eyes open, that conscious mind's
Yeah,
on.
I'm just like squirrel.
Squirrel.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Or it's like you'll look at somebody and
in the eye.
It's
either
not a
that or
nervousness thing,
somebody
it's just
might
like
be
it's a
laughing and you think they're laughing at me.
I just got to keep them closed or get a good
I'll
pair
see.
of
I'll see some of my
Ray-Bans.
friends, and I'm like, I wonder what they're talking. I bet they're talking about. And I'm like, what? What am I singing right now? Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not the only one.
All
that
of
does
us.
That's why I tell everybody. That's why I got my eyes closed. It's not, I'm not
Sensitive,
scared. I just can't
self-absorbed.
concentrate.
I had an agent one time that was like, "You're going to open your eyes," and I was like, "You've never done this before, have you?
Yeah.
Like, this is literally not. This
Like
is
I
not."
have to shut everybody else out so I can.
And your agent
Do it
said,
right,
but they're
yeah.
so pretty.
Like, we're not here for my eyes. Like, we know what we're here.
Hey,
for.
my eyes are down here.
That's great.
You're welcome. You can use it.
That's great. Though. I love that. I love that picture.
So that's the story behind that. Now, do they get to see these on the podcast?
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's a really cool picture.
Thank
it
you.
is. Yeah.
Is that the album cover there?
That should
No,
be an
that
album
was
cover.
my first cover photo on my music page on Facebook when I converted my Facebook page to a music page.
You'd use that for something.
That's a strong one. If you don't, I will.
It's a strong one, and I let it stay there because it really. I dealt with some health issues for the last 13 years that were very, very serious, and the entire time I was writing all of these songs, I was experiencing these health issues, and I'm going to, keep the story about that very mom. But after November of last year, I was cured. They found the issue. I passed 200 kidney stones in the interim. So if y'all wondered if I was a rock star, there's your proof.
Wow.
But I'll just leave it at that. And so
Elvis didn't have that many.
I am a very positive, optimistic person. And I truly believe that God had to take me to the absolute edge for my shadow self to be revealed, or else I would have been goody two shoe. I was voted teacher's pet and buffest bod out of our senior superlatives. Like none of so yeah, I really, the Southern Gothic element that was something I ran from. That's why I went to Colorado. I didn't understand it. And my brother actually, when I came back from Colorado, he was on the way to do the Appalachian Trail, and we lived at my mom's in Eatonton at the lake, just north of Macon, right by Phil Walden's old house.
Eatonton, that's home of Uncle Remus.
It is, the museum. And my aunt tells the story, my stepdad's sister tells the story of watching Greg and Cher ride the jet ski and her hair just flowing. But my brother, Drive-By Trucker's Southern Rock Opera had just been released, and Blanton went, I think we went up to Athens for the day, and he bought probably 4 or 5 Truckers albums and that's all I have him to thank so much. Like, we are such a tight brother-sister group, and everything I hear, I share with him and vice versa. And he bought them, and he was like, Katie, you have to listen to these songs, especially Jason's. They talk about like our grandpa's stories, like both of our grandpa's stories, like our grandpa who was a lieutenant colonel and an L pilot in World War II who infiltrated Nuremberg. That's my dad's dad. To the grandpa who worked at the paper mill in Clyattville for 40 years, who taught me how to work hard and farm. And that's my papa, and it doesn't make me feel embarrassed about being from here. It's something we're proud of. And he left to go on the Appalachian Trail. He actually has completed all 3 of them at this point. But he left the CDs with me. And Blessing and a Curse was really the only one I'd had, and I wore that one out. So I really studied Patterson, Cooley, and Jason, all 3 of their songwriting styles, because they're all so different. So when I went on the bus with them 3 years later, which was odd, I don't get nervous, but dude, I also don't wind up on a tour bus with the people I was just listening to their record with 3 years prior, and have like really, made me feel proud to be from the South for the first time. And, no offense against Rhett Akins or Sonny Shroyer, but those were the only two people that came from Valdosta that had ever made it. And they dang sure weren't girls, and they dang sure didn't play rock and roll. So I was already kind of given a double negative card. I've kind of been the lone salmon swimming up the stream is what I like to tell people in Valdosta. And a lot of people never understood it. But that wasn't up to them. But there's something about the water, the Southern Gothic element. There's stories. Flannery O'Connor, her place Andalusia is about 15 minutes from my mom's on the lake. Spent a lot of time in her works and reading her stuff. That also helped me. All these things that I saw that I did not like about the South, the injustices, the hundreds of years of oppression and things, I could feel the energy. That's why I moved, to get away from it. Well, what was the Avett Brothers song we listened to on the way here? I love Avett Brothers, and their lyrics are so profound too. And they're another group from the South that really is phenomenal songwriters, and just the way they structure their words, it's like those Southern analogies and the way you say things. And it really, for the first time, made me proud to be from here, not embarrassed. And I'm like, okay, I felt like, the Bible says, ask and you shall receive, he'll give it to you. And you just got to be kind of open, have the door open when he's going to test you with it to see if you're worthy of it first. And then to see if, you're worthy of what you want to receive, I believe. But yeah, that's how I got a shelf on my head.
Oh, there's a history behind that picture, though. I mean, it's got to be.
I'd like to really know the history behind it. So
But you just found it.
I found it, and then it inspired the rest of the photos, which you were talking about me being on the river with the ghost image.
Yeah.
I did that on Photoshop. I lightened the gradient and copied.
I really like that picture.
Did they what?
I really like that picture.
The one with the ghost?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad. Well, thank you.
Both of them.
Thank you very much.
And this is very introspective. This thing here, you put the lampshade on your head on this one.
It makes you think, and
I know that's not you, but this is.
You get the symbolism, I guess, because
that's what people are going to think if you ever use that. They're going to say, "Damn, beats buff body."
What's her head look like? When they come to see me at a show, they won't even know it's me because that's what they'll be expecting. But I think part of it too. So I mentioned my dad passed away when I was 9, and it was sort of a tragic situation. It was a very Southern Gothic situation. It revolves around mental health. He unfortunately took his life. It was due to medication, antidepressant medication. When you come off of it and you don't realize, I lost he and my best friend when I was 21, both the same way. Wow. And that best friend's cousin is one of Garrett's near and dear friends, Dylan. But I think that also probably I had to live in Valdosta after that happened. We were Family of the Year for the city of Valdosta and the state of Georgia the year my dad died. He was the head of the torch relay for the Olympics, the entire torch relay from California to Atlanta. He was tapped. He was a sergeant for the Georgia State Patrol, but they tapped him in 92. And a lot of people don't know this, but Valdosta is where they actually did the kickoff for the Olympics at Olympic Park by the overpass in 92. And then he went to Atlanta to work for ACOG, the Atlanta Committee for the Olympic Games after that. And he got home at the end of 96, and then February of 97, he passed away. And so we went from being just in the forefront of everything, which really made me nervous and kind of embarrassed as a child. We were on every billboard from here to Dalton, and every rest area, when you get the little pamphlets, we were on the front of the Georgia pamphlet for every rest area. Cool. The torch relay book that they published for the state of Georgia, it's my parents running the torch together, just a whole page of them. Each of us has a torch, my mom, my brother, and my dad, and we buried one with him. But it was an odd thing for a 9-year-old child to try to grasp, and the spirituality of it too, because church, we're not even going to go there, but that was a whole nother kind of church turned you back on the church turned its back on us, and that was kind of confusing. Well, because a lot of people in the church were kind of doing some feeling guilty, I think, kind of about their own things, and
That's generally
wanted to
the way it
project
is,
that onto you. So from a very early age, I had an awareness of this energy, this thing, this place. It's very heavy. There's a lot of cool stuff here, but there's also some other stuff here that as a child and being very sensitive, I felt but didn't know what it was. And now that I'm back, I'm able to kind of place, okay, this is why this feels a certain way, or this is why this is this. But I don't know if you guys know Nucci Space in Athens. So the Swanee River Keeper Organization and Nucci Space are my two philanthropic organizations that I volunteer with and I'm part of. And that's the reason why I'm so involved with Nucci's, because that's their same exact mission. And it's very special and important to me to bring awareness to mental health and art and music. And that's why God gave us music, so that we can sing the blues, commiserate with somebody else that knows that somebody else feels like us. And had somebody tell me one time, blues is not Christian, which I expected to hear that in South Georgia. But I said, that's not true at all. And I took him right to the verse. And I said, this is why I don't believe that, because he gave us music so that we could commiserate. He tells us we have the music to get us out of the hump. He doesn't want us staying in the slump. We sing the blues to help us get out of that slump and commiserate.
Make a joyful noise unto the Lord.
That's yes, sir. And you know
and
what?
Garrett hit on it earlier. He said it's universal.
It is.
And for one little small clump of narrow-minded individuals that want to say, you can't play at our house or whatever. You can't play with my ball.
That was the Bible verse on their shower curtain, the irony when I used the bathroom at their house, believe it or not. I can't believe you said that.
I don't know, but that's the way it works.
Yeah, and I referenced back to that. I was like, y'all, the verse on your shower curtain, too. How can y'all...
Well, there's a lot of mystery in people's attitudes.
People fear what they don't know is really the best way I can describe it. And they want to put a label on something. And I understand. That's the human condition.
The human condition, the fabric of life. Let's go to number 2. I like to call this one Something in the Water.
Okay. So I'll tell you the story behind this. Woo, Lord, I'm getting cold just thinking about this picture. So I am in Madison Blue Springs off the Swanee River at Madison State Park, right near where my grandmother grew up. I took this picture as a promo photo this past year. I was the headlining act for the first ever Swanee River Keeper Black Tie Gala. They incorporated it with their songwriter contest this year. It was the 6th annual songwriter contest. I did the gala, was the headliner and the entertainment. And so I was doing a lot of promo stuff to try to bring awareness to this gala. It was $60 a ticket. We really upped the ante this year on the event. And I went down to Madison Blue Springs and got in that water and took that picture of myself, filmed myself on camera.
How did you do that?
And then screenshotted. No, I propped. Y'all gonna love this. I go down there. I'm the only one there for 5 minutes, which is always how it is. And then somebody else shows up. So I look like a crazy person probably to these people. And I have on an all lace long sleeve shirt that's got, I'm fully clothed, obviously, but which made it even funnier when I come up out of the water with this outfit on. But I propped my phone up because the water comes up to like the 4th step, depending on how much water's in the river. So I had propped my dive bag. I got certified to dive at Jenny Springs when I moved home. So I took my diving bag with me and propped my cell phone up on the dive bag. It was getting soaking wet. And I just turned on a video. And I was like, I'll take a screenshot from the video and stop it at the right. If you look at the bottom, it's kind of granulated. You can kind of see where it's moving. The top is not as granulated. But I've got some funny videos videos of like me dipping down into the water, and I'm like, I think the caption on there is I pulled out my inner emo mermaid for this shot, and it was 68 degrees in the water.
That is a fantastic picture.
Thank you so much.
Don't look cold at all.
Yeah,
In fact,
you don't look like I know that you
to me,
feel.
it looks hot.
I tried. Well, I did go to the journalism college at Georgia, so I tried to learn a thing or two. And they called us multimedia journalists when I was in grad school. They made us learn every job. And I was like, well, that's great. But what happens when somebody needs to be behind and in front of the camera at the same time? And so I pulled my skills out and just did what I knew. And the bloopers, the reels, the videos of me actually doing it are hilarious. And I've got those still, but that's how that was taken.
That's awesome.
In a very special place that is very important and full of Native American history and artifacts and animals.
It does look kind of blue.
And
Blue Springs.
it is peak blue. It's a little green in that picture. Like when you see it for real, I mean, it is the most gorgeous. It is the most gorgeous spot. If you guys are watching this and you get a wild hair, about what is it, like 20 minutes once you get through Florida, or it's not even that far. It's 45 minutes from my house in Valdosta. So you just cross
To the
right over the
springs.
line.
What spring is it again?
Madison Blue Springs. It's
Okay, it's south of
Madison,
Valdosta.
Florida.
It's south. It's only 45 minutes from 45 minutes to an hour from the house. There's no cell service. You can either go the way you go to Swanee Park, or you can get off the other exit. And I also love Swanee Springs. That's across from Swanee Music Park.
Yeah.
That's another killer.
Itch Tuckney is the one that I went to when I was living in
Yeah.
Valdosta.
The
It's
itch.
Tuckney and Jenny Springs.
Ooh, so cold.
So cold, but you are baptized every time you get in that water. That's the water that I was envisioning when I wrote that song. I missed that place. My DNA is from right there, that dirt and that water. That's why I function so wonderfully down here. And people are like, why do you live down there? I'm like, don't get in my business. That for you to know, like, this is where I lay my head. I can get on a plane and go anywhere and be there in 4 hours at the furthest place that I have to fly in the country. And in Valdosta, I walk onto the airplane. It's the only place that I can still walk onto the airplane, get on a plane, get home at 9:30 and be in my bed at 10. So, I mean, the peace I have down here is unmatched and it's priceless. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
That's a good one. What's
Thank you.
next? Okay, so the caption on this was something like,
Can I
play,
pull it up?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, read
This is
it
a wonderful
exactly.
story.
Because there's some wild ramblings on this post.
This is
They're
my
cool when you
entire
tie 'em all
life.
together.
That I was 36. Actually, I had just taken you to the Bluegrass Hall in Quitman. Garrett didn't know anything about this. Backstory. Let me start with the backstory. So when I was in Athens, my grandfather, I'd come home to spend time with my grandfather Blanton from Clyattville, and right off of Rocky Ford Road and Old Clyattville is a road called Mount Zion. And the Watkins built a spot called the Mount Zion Music Hall, which was a bluegrass hall for probably 60 or 70 years off of Rocky Ford. Well, in Athens, I had been playing at this barbecue shack bluegrass get-together on Thursdays with the most incredible players. There's a picture of that on my Instagram. I think the caption of that is just my standard Thursday. So like I got back from Stanford, from Palo Alto, from my fellowship, and the first thing I did was go to this bluegrass barbecue thing at the joint. And my grandpa found out about it and was like, why don't you come down to Mount Zion? Mr. Jimmy Watkins is still running the hall. Our families have known each other for years. I wanted to make my grandpa proud. So I said, yeah, let's go. And on that ride home to go to Mount Zion, my grandfather told me a story the night my great-grandpa Blanton was dying in the hospital in Valdosta. He looked at my papa and he said, if I'd have ever had a fiddle, I'd have never planted a row of corn a day in my life.
Wow.
And I said, you waited 28 years to tell me that? I was 28 when he told me. And see, that's the same great-grandpa that farmed the 2,000 to 3,000 acres that Wild Adventures was on.
Oh.
And so I'm sitting here thinking, what? Like, this is why the fiddle, and this is why this is in me. Like, great grandpa, you got me. So we go to Mount Zion. I would come home. I'd do Thursday at barbecue in Athens. Quitman, I found out had a bluegrass hall on Friday. So I'd go over to Quitman. And then Saturday, I'd play Mount Zion. And then I'd go back home to Athens on Sunday. So when I moved back home and COVID had gotten over around Christmas of this past year, Garrett and I had started playing together. And I said, have you ever been to the Bluegrass Hall in Quitman? And he was like, wait, there's a Bluegrass Hall in Quitman? I said, dude, let's go. It is amazing. You're going to see like the first Telecaster ever made. The man that runs it, his name is Mr. Billy Ingram. He's 85 years old, still plays his original American F-Hole Telly. The bass player looks like George Jones. He has the same haircut. People think it's a wig. It's his real hair. The other bass player used to be the bass player at Mount Zion Music Hall and remembered me from playing there. So I took Garrett to this hall in Quitman because it's the only one left. They closed down Mount Zion, and the Barbecue Shack in Athens stopped doing their thing at COVID too. So let me pull up the caption for this. The people so this picture was actually taken after 4 hours of line dancing, gospel and bluegrass and country, and I mean, just the greatest music. When people kept asking me, what you play, country? Like, it was because that was during the time of Florida Georgia Line and all that. No, you give me the real, I want that real country. I want the country my grandmother and grandfather raised me on. And that C.W. McCall, George Jones, and, you know, the good stuff. And that's what they play there. And I'm telling you, Garrett and I will forever be the youngest people to ever enter into the room. And they will put you to shame. They are 65 to 80 years old, dancing every song. They get up and they sit back down. And then the next song plays and they get up and they sit back down. Wow. It's the most infectious environment. And that night, we were there. This was the second time I went. I don't think you were with me that night, actually. I went to sing, and they had been wanting me to sing. So I picked Walking After Midnight, Tulsa Time, and Stand By Me were the 3 songs that I played and sang. And at the end, the man in the front, his name is Mr. Benny Cox. He's from Madison. He ended up sitting in front of me and Garrett the first time we were there. And come to find out, he knows my whole grandmother's family. They're the Bars family from Madison. Mm-hmm. Knows my Uncle Junior, knows my grandma, has been best friends with them. So that was really cool. And the lady in the red, her name is Sylvia Pitzing. And she has known me my whole entire life. Another random person we weren't expecting to see there. Her husband was FBI. I hope I can say that. So my dad was a Georgia State Patrolman. Mm-hmm. And so she and her husband and my dad did an FBI sting here. I'm not going to tell you who they called. You
in
can
Waycross?
No, in Valdosta. Sorry,
in Valdosta. Probably was me.
It's actually a famous actress's family. Is all I'm going to say, because I don't want to get a phone call from anybody. But we'll just leave it at that. So they set up in a hotel room and bust them, and they have Sylvia is part of the sting or whatever it is. And I meet her when this is crazy. So when I get my piano, my first piano that I've actually been able to have in my house and not a keyboard, came from an estate sale she was running. That was my next door neighbor's. She had passed away, my childhood next door neighbors. And that's how I met her when I got to Valdosta. So when she saw me out there at the Bluegrass Hall, she was stoked. And then the man behind me is the singer with the bunny ears on me. And then the man playing pedal steel, his name is Alan McDaniel. He's 94 years old and went to school with my grandmother's 94-year-old oldest living sister, Aunt Eunice, at Madison High School.
Wow.
So this whole, it's just another 1
It's
degree
another layer.
separate, another layer. It's a beautiful. I might have to get the Wi-Fi password because I can't pull up my.
Yeah, we're
You pretty much expressed it, and
Facebook.
yeah, that was it.
We're off-
The
we're
way
kinda
you
off the
described
grid
it.
right
we
here.
go. It says,
Yeah, it's kind of like it's lost in a cypress stump out there somewhere.
I said, when you blow the boots off the bluegrass hall, realize the pedal steel player went to school with your grandma's sister, then run into the wonderful woman who helped your dad pull off a successful FBI sting. I'd say that counts for a good night.
If that ain't country,
Oh, yeah.
And I don't like Wagon Wheel. No, I'm just kidding.
well, it's my opinion.
I love Wagon Wheel.
If you don't love a Bob Dylan original, and then the way Old Crow just brought it out, Darius Rucker ruined it. Darius Rucker ruined it. Darius Rucker ruined it.
Well, and that's
That's just my opinion.
It's a good one. It's a
absolutely.
popular one.
Well, and that's what makes it so funny is like, that's the irony. The thing I ran away from, I tell people I squalled tires getting out of here. And, buddy, I sped at 100 miles an hour back.
Just to come home.
Not really. Don't give me a ticket or anything. I don't speed.
She'd have got out of it because her daddy was state patrol.
You know, somebody asked me that one time. They said, I bet you've gotten out of all kinds of stuff because you're your daddy. I said, you actually have to be bad and get in trouble to get caught. I was like, I don't be bad. So, unless I'm playing music, and it's a different kind of bad. So,
Well, after all, she was voted, what you say, Buff Bod?
oh my gosh.
Buff Bod
That
what?
was a joke.
Blip,
Kind of.
Bluff Bod?
Buffest bod of. So, yeah, not only am I Miss LHS and then it was a joke because when I moved to Hayhira in the middle of 6th grade, I was a competitive gymnast. Well, you start weight training in middle school, and the girls are usually a little ahead, a year or two than the boys. So I was deadlifting and leg pressing and benching like twice what the boys were in the 7th grade. So it stuck, and it just remained a joke. And I've always been an athlete. I'm a yoga teacher still. I still run, and it's just part of me and who I am.
Well, like I was saying a little earlier, this tale of the week that we're going to listen to tonight, I blogged a little bit back in before the COVID years, about 2.5 years of weekly blogs
Back in PC.
back in PC.
Peace.
Oh, that's grainy, ain't it? But there's your friend Bill on the right
Oh,
there,
I could see him grain at all.
and on the left was his baby brother John Smith. Three of us had bands through the years, you know.
See, I had two people with the same last name too.
Yes,
Like
Smith
we
Griffin
do.
Smith. It sounds like a gang.
Sounds like an
It
attorney.
looks like a
attorney office.
gang.
Well, that was we had a band called the Rebelliers. It might have been when you were. What year were you in?
I was at
Bill's
Salis
class?
Mahone from 1990 to 1994.
Yeah, because 91 was when we came out with this group.
Dude, that's what he looked like when
Yeah.
I was in his class.
I always thought he looked a lot like Lee Van Cleef in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah.
John always looked like Fess Parker in Old Yeller.
Y'all look like Doc Holliday, Wyatt Earp, and who were the other two?
Well, here we go.
Doc's from Valdosta, side note.
Yeah. I was going to say that a while ago when he said, you know,
Exactly.
exactly. About us. I was like, I was going to say that. But
Yeah.
We need to do a Doc Holliday song.
And I just watched Gunfight at the OK Corral, the original one back from the
That's the best one.
50s. Spring break 1998 was in full swing for schools across the South, John and Bill Smith being full-time Georgia educators. John taught high school English with a Southern accent at Pierce County in Blackshear, Georgia. Bill, he was a music teacher at Salis Mahone Elementary School, where this young lady went to school and learned to sing from her diaphragm. in Valdosta, Georgia.
Don't make me cry now. It's welling up. You just got started.
Both Smith boys were happy to be out of the hallways for a week. So in our spare time, the three of us wrote songs together, and in 98, we recorded a 12-song CD called Smith Griffin Smith and headed to Nashville in early April to peddle our tunes. With the help of some former bandmates, Bill Ferris from Waycross and Mike Clark from, I think he was around about Valdosta, we had appointments scheduled in Nashville with several record companies, including Reba McEntire's Starstruck and Curb Records.
I just knew you were about to say Curb.
All three of us were published songwriters with the late, great Bill Lowry, a giant of a man who headed up a music publishing company in Atlanta, recognized the world over.
He sure did.
Wasn't he brilliant?
He was incredible.
Through our publishing contracts with Lowry, we were affiliated with the song licensing organization BMI, with offices in Nashville. One mention of Lowry's name and closed doors flew open, giving us more opportunities to at least get our songs heard. We scoured the phone book and called the number of Paul Kraft, a fine songwriter originally from Memphis, who wrote Midnight Flyer, recorded by the Eagles, Keep Me From Blowing Away by Linda Ronstadt, and Drop Kick Me Jesus, a big country hit for Bobby Bare. Y'all ever heard that one?
Wow.
Drop Kick Me Jesus
I
through the
want to.
goalposts of life.
Oh my gosh, I've got to hear. Well, this state champion cheerleader's got to hear that through the goalposts of life.
Meeting after meeting yielded one disappointment after another. It's not what we're looking for. Sounds real good. Too good for Nashville. We don't hear any song ditties.
Don't call us, we'll call you.
Sounds like Nashville.
On our last day in Nashville, before we tucked our dejected tails and headed home, we ran into Harlan Howard, the dean of country music songwriters, sitting on a bar stool in a restaurant. Howard wrote many a great song, among them I Fall to Pieces, Heartaches by the Number, and Streets of Baltimore. He graciously accepted our CD and told us, feel free to send me anything we write in the future. You write in the future. I swear to God, I couldn't eat. We had stopped off to get coffee in this certain restaurant on Music Row, or you know how it
Broadway into
comes down and then goes back down.
Yeah.
A lot of little publishing houses on there. You got Belmont at the top end or the bottom end. And there was this restaurant where we'd get our morning coffee. And we were in there getting coffee, and I was walking around the bar looking at these brass placards drilled into the bar, and this one said, Harlan Howard Stew. And I said, yeah, right. And the waiter said, no, man. No, he comes in here every day. And by the end of that day, I had forgotten all about that, so we stopped off in there and was having supper. And they had just brought our meal to us, and I was sitting with my back to the front door, and John was across from me and Bill. And John says, he's got his eye on the front door, he says, Dave, Harlan Howard just walked in the door. And I went. And John said, he's easing over to the bar. He's sitting at that stool that you looked at this morning. And I was sitting there thinking, oh God, what I've got to do. I've got to do this. And I pushed my plate back. And I got up and walked over there, you know, a little unsure about what you're going to say.
Yeah.
You know, this guy's done built up in your own mind. And he was so open. I mean, it's like talking to your uncle. He said, sit down. Pulled up a stool next to him, told him our story, and gave him that CD. And He was a nice man. He signed, the only sheet of paper I had was something folded up, stuffed in my jacket pocket. It was some lyrics I was writing, and he signed the top of it. That was cool.
That's so cool.
That evening, we took in the Nashville nightlife, winding up at Tootsie's Orchid Lounge, where a group of songwriters were performing on stage. They perked up when we walked in with our sport coats and slightly graying hair, mistaking us 3 struggling songwriters for record executives. They all did. They all looked at us because we were older, you know. And they said,
Well, Bill
Surely
always
they can.
had that look. Bill's looked the same to me my whole life, and I don't.
It's a chiseled, good
It
look.
is, but exec would
Yeah,
definitely
yeah.
would be what Nashville exec. I would
Those
think.
those eyes. Bill's. Smith Brothers and I woke up on Tuesday, April 7th, that day, 1998, in our Nashville motel room to the news of Tammy Wynette's death. Virginia Pugh was born on May 5th, 1942, on a cotton farm in Itawamba County, Mississippi. Before she would become known as the First Lady of Country Music, she worked as a cotton picker, waitress, barmaid, and beautician.
It's Bobby or Tammy.
She was an all-star on the Tremont High School basketball team, and a month before receiving her high school diploma, she married for the first time to a man named Upel Bird. Upel
Bird.
Upel.
I want to name my son that.
Don't you?
You know this story? Yeah.
The marriage crumbled, and after 6 years and 3 children, she left Upel and headed to Nashville.
Because his name was Upel.
Yeah.
Like,
That
that's
had a
why
lot
she
to do
left
with
him.
it.
Like, I'm just
I know that's
kidding.
from the show,
Yeah.
the series they did. George and Tammy.
She left Upel and headed to Nashville to pursue her dream. Upel's famous last words to her was, dream on, baby. I guess she showed him.
I've heard that a time or two. But they'll hear me a time or two now, so.
They got something else coming.
They sure do.
Striving to land a recording contract, she was turned down repeatedly until she auditioned for Billy Sherrill at Epic Records. Sherrill signed her and suggested she change her name from Virginia to Tammy, and it was a constant force in her career, co-writing many of her hits, including her signature song, Stand By Your Man, in 1968. Tammy Wynette was one of country's biggest selling female singers of all time, charting 20 times at the #1 spot. One of her most remembered successes was Divor,
See?
written by the songwriting team
Dang,
of
Upel.
Bobby Braddock and Carly Putman, who also wrote He Stopped Loving Her Today,
Oh, I didn't know that.
George Jones' monster hit. In one of country music's most celebrated unions, Tammy married George in 1969 in Ringgold, Georgia.
I didn't know that.
Ringgold, golden ring.
I have a chill bump, like a
Their
face chill
personal,
bump.
their personal relationship was stormy, really,
Best.
and publicly dramatized over 6 years they were married, but professionally, they were a match made in heaven. Their duets are among the greatest in country music, with songs like Golden Ring and We're Gonna Hold On. They held on till their divorce in 1975. They were 6 years married. How about that? 3 years later, Wynette was married for the last time to singer-songwriter George Ritchie. Over the years, Tammy's halting, hesitating, and always honest voice became the landmark of female country singers. She sold over 30 million records, won 3 Grammy Awards, and was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. On April 6, 1998, at the age of 55, she passed away while sleeping on her couch in her Nashville home. The next morning, before making our rounds on Music Row, the brothers Smith and I stopped for coffee at the restaurant where we had met Harlan Howard. There in a booth with his publicist sat Marty Stewart. With the famous Nashville handshake, we slipped him our CD and said, "We're from Waycross, same place as Graham Parsons," and left him alone with his mimosas and his memories of one more of country music's fallen angels.
What a beautiful story.
Right.
Taking a second, Garrett. Drop my coffee and second Garrett on that. That was beautiful,
Well,
Dave.
she's beautiful.
She is. She's
And
gorgeous.
just to be able to, like he's talking about, that music roundabout of music,
Yeah.
where you're constantly, it's like a little old merry-go-round wheel at the playground.
That's it.
You roll around, all of a sudden you bump into a child walking too close, and that's somebody you've just become cosmically connected to. And Marty Stewart, of all people, was sitting there having champagne and mimosas.
After we just talked about Marty.
Yeah,
With-
and it's
during the
just,
cast.
he had to be celebrating her life.
That's something that I've learned, because through my life and through my life as a musician, I have suffered a lot of loss, but like Widespread Panic says, you can't appreciate the good until you have the bad. Mm-hmm. Thank you, JB. I think that's part of music too. I think that's what our job is to showcase that like life's not going to be perfect. I love a book by the man Don Miguel Ruiz called The Four Agreements. And they are: be impeccable with your word, always tell the truth, always do your best, and now I can't even think of the last one.
Well, it better be good. It's going to be as good as them first three.
Hold on, we're going to have to cut on that because it's.
It's kind of like an inspirational book.
It's incredible. So actually, going back to Nucci Space, when I volunteered for Camp Amp in 2015, they asked me to go to Barnes & Noble, is what they had in Athens, and asked me to go and get a book for one of the lead instructors for Camp Amp, and it was this book. And so I kind of was curious about it when I got it, and he wrote another book called The Mastery of Love, and so I bought both of them, and I bought the ones for the man I was supposed to buy. But it's be impeccable with your word, say only, all right, Google. Let's see. I thought I had it in, let's see.
It's kind of like the Four Commandments.
And like the seven Hermetic principles, like I actually watched a video on that last night, and they're all 10 Commandments, Hermetic principles, just rules of, you look at all the different religions, they have this underlying basis of like, just don't be a turd.
Yeah.
Just be a pretty decent human.
Yeah.
And this just really gets deeper into it as far as, okay, well, you say that the 10 Commandments are absolutely incredible. They're like your physical actions. And I look at the 4 agreements as almost being like your mental commitments of like how to keep your mind clear. And like I told you, I've taught yoga for the last decade, but it's been very important for me, especially going through my health situations, that I maintain mental clarity and mental focus, and to keep that when you're going through this hellacious fire and this forest on fire of trees, that is the true test. And it was for me anyway. So this really helped me. It's, I can't believe the most important one is the one I forgot. So it's be impeccable with your word. Do not take anything personally. That changed my life. Do not assume anything is the third one. that also changed my life. So we know what assuming does. And the fourth one is always do your best. And that took away so much anxiety, because I know down here in the South, we work, but to somebody it's never good enough. But you know what? It's good enough for me and God. And I did the very best that I could. And He knew I did the very best that I could. Being sick, I couldn't be that competitive gymnast doing 13 backflips. I had to go into a different realm, which for me, thank God, was music. And I transmuted and learned how to channel that energy into something mental and vocal instead of something physical. So that's alchemy to me, just from my viewpoint. I don't think it's so much as turning metals into gold as it is transmuting some negative energy and negative experiences into something positive and something you can be proud of.
Well, now I'll applaud you.
Oh, thank you.
That's pretty good stuff. Oh, Hermes was wise.
Thank you. Well, and I have my teachers to thank for that. I'm a kid of public school, and I'm very proud of that. That's the reason why it was so important for me to teach.
And one of those teachers was
Smith and Smith, Mr. Bill Smith. Thank you from the
Hey,
bottom
before
of my
we get out of
heart.
here, this has been a great podcast, by the way.
Thank you.
So glad to have had y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Looking forward to hear y'all too. Some
Yeah.
music.
Yeah.
We were given a gift before you arrived
Oh yeah.
here. Yeah, and I think
Wow.
don't hand him my shirt over there.
Yeah. So
Look at this, y'all. Huh?
Right.
I came across that this week. A client of mine left that at their house and said that I could take it. It was one of the only things left. And I knew we had
Got
this.
Elvis right there.
It's the perfect size, isn't it? So I couldn't see that on the podcast, but Garrett and I watched a couple of episodes to get ready for this, and I noticed the beautiful Elvis artwork and the Emmy Lou and Graham, and
You know what we could do? We could take the 4 grams and make this the gram door, then put Elvis over here and put that sign right through the middle.
that was meant for y'all. I saw that in the garage. I said,
That's
"What in
awesome.
the world?" So I knew exactly where to bring it, and it's got its new home. And
We will put it to use.
please do.
Great.
Thank y'all so much for having us.
We thank y'all
y'all.
too.
You are so welcome.
Well, y'all, we appreciate y'all watching and listening out there in Wonderland. And do invite you to come back. Please like us and subscribe us. Comment. Shoot us some emails. Whatever you do. Just
Don't shoot us.
don't shoot us.
Bake us some cookies or whatever.
Bake us some cookies. Follow the 4 examples that she eloquently laid out right there. Which one was bake cookies? And send 'em to-
Eloquently, it took me 3 times to find it.
Well, Hermes wasn't eloquent either.
He's like, where'd I put that?
Even the greats had issues too, right?
We thank y'all for being with us. Absolutely. And loved having you.
Thank you so much. This
Thank
is so
y'all.
beautiful. Thank you.
Y'all come to the Graham Parsons Guitar Pool this year, October 17th, 18th, 19th, and you'll see these cats. And
We'll be here. Hey guys, welcome to Something in the Water podcast. I am Katherine Ball, and this is Garrett Martin, my guitar player. We're going to be playing a couple of songs for you guys, some of our originals. This first one is based on true events, and it's called Over the Top. We wrote this in Athens with some former band members of mine and myself around 2016. So this, like I said, was based on true events, and we hope you enjoy. Into the night, whoa, spelled in smoke. The handwriting in the wind. Still I go way out over the top. And off the deep end, I'm holding on tight while my world spins away. West of the line, whoa, and on my trace, these demons, they hold me, but I stepped out and fell back over the top, and off the deep end, I'm holding on tight while my world spins away. And I'm always dreaming with one eye open. I'm always dreaming with one eye. Then one day in air, I carried it off with me, and then I took to the sky and jumped back over the top, and off the deep end, I'm holding on tight while my world spins away over the top, and off the deep end, I'm holding you tight while my world spins away. And I'm always dreaming with one eye open. I'm always dreaming with one eye open. I'm always dreaming with one eye open. I'm always dreaming with one eye. This is Jade. I look into your eyes 1,000 times. Behind the black I see a million miles. Eclipse the sun, the moon, the sky spins closer in my mind. This love, it longs for you. This heart beats hard for you. This love, it longs for you. But you're the one I'll lose. I'll be breathe. Echo back to me. This silence is my scream. Drifts and dreams, embers and streams, ignite the light that's inside of me. I found a harbor from this storm, lost and safe in your arms. The sun's luster, it shines so bright. Feathers entangled, take to fly. I feel earth move underneath, and dawn shadow slowly creeps. Stars they gleam, wake me from the state
dream. Give me something that I can believe. This may be my sight, and it may take my life, but I will not give up on this fight. I found a harbor from this storm, lost here safe in your arms. The sun's luster, it shines so bright, feathers entangled take to flight. My love is strong for you, this heart beats hard for you, this love, it longs for you, but you're the one that I'll lose. Something in the water, something in the water, something in this God-forsaken place. I don't know, but it hurts to show, and I hope its flow is full of grace. All this time I thought I'd find what I was searching for in something else. I was wrong till you came along. You turned on my light as my best defense. Now I'm not afraid, now I have no fear. My heart's an open door and I'll let you in. A song I'll sing for this one dream, and I pray my soul will bloom and rest. Something in the water, something in the water, something in this God-forsaken place. I don't know, but it hurts to show, and I hope its flow is full of grace. Something in the water, something in the water. There's something in this God-forsaken place. I don't know, but it hurts to show, and I hope its flow is full of grace. And I hope its flow is full of grace. Something in the water, something in the water, something in this God-forsaken place. I don't know, but it hurts to show, and I hope its flow is full of grace.
Thank you, Garrett. That was great. That was Something in the Water. So if you were listening to the podcast earlier, you'd know this was actually the first song that I ever wrote all the way through. I was in Athens, Georgia around 2014 when I wrote that song, and it made me remember my home. I missed South Georgia and where I was from, and I wrote that song with the complete and utter idea and energy of this beautiful place where we're from. That being said, we've got one more song for you. It's the funkiest by far that we'll play tonight, and it's called Where Have You Gone? You came around the other day. You started talking, but you didn't have nothing to say. So we laid it out. You were rocking all over. We decided to let you back in, and that's when it all went down. Tell me, where have you gone? We've been trying to find you, yeah. We've been looking all over this town, and no one can seem to scout you out. It came as anchor, they say around the other day. Too much of something's good till you gotta go and give it away. So we laid it down, but you were roaming all over. We decided to reel you back, and that's when it all unfolded. Tell me, where have you gone? We've been trying to find you, yeah. We've been looking all over this town, and no one can seem to scout you out. Seem to scout you out. Tell me, where have you gone? We've been trying to find you, yeah. We've been looking all over this town. No one can seem to scout you, yeah.
Just might seal your face